Again, welcome to anyone who has joined. This is the fall information session about the Mass Cultural Council Artist Fellowships in the fiscal year 2022. Again, welcome. During this session, we will talk generally about Mass Cultural Council's Artist Fellowships, as well as specifically about the current applications in the categories of choreography, poetry, and traditional arts, for which there is an October 25th, 2021 deadline. My name is Dan Blask. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am program officer in the artist department at Mass Cultural Council. I will be joined today by my colleagues Kelly Bennett, Maggie Holtzberg, and Jen Lawless, who you'll have the pleasure of hearing from in just a minute. I want to say first that Mass Cultural Council is a state agency that promotes excellence, inclusion, education, and diversity in the arts, humanities, and sciences, fosters a rich cultural life for all Massachusetts residents, and contributes to the vitality of our communities and economy. The Council pursues this mission through a wide range of grants, initiatives, and advocacy for artists, communities, organizations, and schools. This fall information session about Mass Cultural Council's Artist Fellowships will primarily focus on our support of individual artists. It is our pleasure and our privilege to support individual artists, and we welcome each and every one of you to this event. And we thank you and appreciate the work that you do in the Commonwealth to make it a more creative place. We have enabled live auto-generated captions or subtitles for this info session. So if captions or subtitles would be useful to you, I encourage you to turn them on the toolbar at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And if you have questions along the way, please write them in the chat. We will answer them either as we go in our presentation or after the presentation. Today, we are talking about the Artist Fellowships. They are Mass Cultural Council's direct, unrestricted grants to Massachusetts artists. By direct, I mean that individuals, not organizations, apply for them. And if they are selected, individuals, not organizations, receive those funds. By unrestricted, I mean that the grants, once awarded, can be used for anything that the grantees choose. We at the Council hope that the grants will help artists continue to create exceptional creative work in the Commonwealth, but they are unrestricted. In the 2022 fiscal year, Mass Cultural Council has committed over $1 million to the Artist Fellowships. That's close to double last year's budget for this program. And the goal is to double the individual artists funded in this program, going from around 75 artists in a year to closer to 150. I should note, we received many more than 150 applications to this program, and so it is still very competitive, but we are very pleased to look to be funding more artists in fiscal year 22. The Artist Fellowship Awards are $15,000. There is also a finalist award. This year, the finalist award is $5,000, and that is up from last year's award of $1,500. The review criteria for the Artist Fellowships program. One thing I want to say right off the bat is that there are 12 categories. One of them is unique, and that's traditional arts. My colleague Maggie Holtzberg is going to speak a little bit more about that in a minute, but please note as I'm speaking about review criteria, there is a little bit different criteria for traditional arts, and there are some other differences that we'll talk about as we go. So the review criteria for the artist fellowships are artistic quality and creative ability based on the work samples submitted. So there is generally no project proposal that artists are putting forward. There's just a little bit of contact information that we ask you to give us, and then a little bit of information about work samples that you are sharing for this grant. We ask that that work that you submit for this program have been completed within the last 4 years. It can be started much longer ago than that, and it can still be in progress. But if it was completed more than 4 years ago, we'd ask you to submit newer work. Again, that's different from traditional arts, and Maggie will speak about that in a minute. Another thing that we ask is that the work be original work for all categories except for traditional arts. And by that, I mean, we cannot accept translations unless you're translating from your own work. We cannot accept adaptations of work that isn't your own, but original work that you are the primary creator of. Who is eligible to receive or to apply for, and then hopefully receive at some point, an artist fellowship? To apply, you need to be 18 years of age or older. You need to be a legal resident of Massachusetts. We use the Department of Revenue's definition of a full year resident to be our definition of legal resident. So someone who maintains a year-long, an all-year abode in Massachusetts and spends at least 1 day more than half the year actually living there. We also ask that you are a resident of Massachusetts at the time the awards are announced. For this current deadline, that announcement will take place in late January. And we ask that you have been a resident of Massachusetts for the last 2 years. So for now, you would be ineligible to apply if you received an artist fellowship within the last 5 years. You would need to wait to apply if you are currently a high school or undergraduate student, or if you are a graduate student in a directly related area. Generally, the way we approach that is if you are a PhD student in a more scholarly or academic field, get in touch with us. We may allow you to apply, but if you are in, say, an MFA program, we would consider that directly related, and we would ask that you wait to apply until you've completed your program.
Quick question here, Dan. We have one simple question. Are recent LCC grant recipients ineligible to apply? And I believe the answer is they are eligible to apply.
They are eligible and encouraged, and we appreciate that they applied to multiple Mass Cultural Council programs, and absolutely any kind of, I'll add to that, not only LCC grants, but folks who are volunteers on LCCs are still eligible to apply for artist fellowships. That's a great question. If you are a staff or council member or a family of a staff or council member of Mass Cultural Council, unfortunately, you're not eligible to apply, but hopefully you'll get to go to a fun staff party at some point when we have those again, if we ever do. So we are currently accepting applications in 3 categories, those being choreography, poetry, and traditional arts. The deadline is end of the day, October 25th, 2021, so 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. We will accept applications in 3 other categories those being drawing and printmaking, fiction, creative nonfiction, and painting, beginning December 15th, 2021. And those will have a January 24, 2022 deadline. Maggie, any questions popping up specific?
Yes, Dan, thank you for asking. So there we have two. One says, wait, because I'm a student in college, I can't apply. Yeah, and the question is, I mean, the answer, and then also, well,
yeah,
and then a second question related is all undergraduate students are ineligible regardless of their degree. Those are two questions.
Unfortunately, that is true. Undergraduate students are not eligible to apply for this program. No matter what you're studying, we strongly encourage you to apply when you have completed school, and deeply appreciate your interest in the program.
One other question. Well, I know the answer to this one. Are these awards based on yearly income of the household, which is absolutely not relevant, right?
Right, so they are not. We don't know any, the grants are anonymously judged. The reviewers, the panelists only see the work and what information you've added about the work sample details. They don't know your identity or any other aspect about you. And so income is not one of the factors, just the artistic quality and creative ability of the work that was submitted.
I mean, I don't know if these questions keep popping up. I don't know if we should wait and I should just copy them or if we should move on.
Move on for now, and then
okay.
If a question fits what we're talking about, please jump in and bring it up, Maggie.
Okay, great.
So now my colleague Kelly Bennett is going to discuss applications in the choreography category.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So keep the questions coming. We will get to them at the end of the presentation and or in discipline-specific questions. So I coordinate the Choreography Fellowship, and I want to let you know that at any time, if you have any questions about any of the fellowship categories, if you're thinking about applying or you're in the middle of applying, to please reach out and contact Dan, myself, or Maggie. So with choreography, you can apply with up to 4 video files, 20 minutes total running time. You can submit 1 file or up to 4. You really want to make sure that your files stay within the 2 GB maximum. As a rule, you don't want to have any identifying information on your video work sample, meaning try not to have your name appear on the title or the credits, because it is an anonymous review. It would also be helpful when you're naming your video files to have them named as the title of the piece. So for instance, if I'm submitting 2 works and my first dance piece is called Dancing in the Rain, that would be the title that I would use when I'm labeling my files, so that way they can be tracked. It's an anonymous review, like I said, and so the titles of your pieces will help to identify the work for the jurors. A tip on submitting video files. The new grant system that we're going to walk you through, it's helpful for video files to be saved on your computer and not through Dropbox or another type of system, because uploading the video file from an outside place like Vimeo or Dropbox just won't work. So you really want to make sure you save your video files to your own computer first when you go to upload them in the application. That will save you a lot of frustration. As Dan had said, the work can be from The last 4 years, it can be a work in progress. And knowing that we're still going through the pandemic, there was a major disruption in performances. Any type of work that you've created in the last 4 years, and if it's been live streamed and you have a recording of that, it's all fine. If you've done choreographic work in your own home or a residence or a site-specific place outside, all of that is accepted. There's no restrictions on the type of choreography or the way in which the work is presented. So it's a broad range for you as artists to be able to submit your work to us. In the choreography, can it be a YouTube link? No, it has to be video files. So you have to take that, however you got the video to YouTube link, you need that original file to be uploaded. The category accepts performance works in all movement styles. We welcome dance, mixed media, multi-genre performances that feature movement of the human body. So that's essentially it. I wish you great success in applying. And if you have any questions, like I said, whatsoever for the choreography application, please get in touch. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, okay. People are not hearing anything.
Okay, sorry about that. Having a little bit of technical difficulty. Going to restart the share screen in just a moment.
I can answer some questions as you do that. I'll go through the chat, a few more. So someone had a question about purchasing a house in mid-October, didn't move until February 21, 2021. Am I eligible? No, unfortunately, it's a 2-year residency in order to be eligible to apply. If I submit choreography, should I add a translation of the soundtrack? That's up to you. If you want to, that's fine. Can we apply in both categories, poetry and nonfiction? Yes, you can. You can apply in more than one category as long as you submit different work samples. I publish poetry under my maiden name. Should I apply under my current legal name or the name under which I publish? I think that you can apply under either, and then if you are awarded a fellowship, we'll deal with the legalities of the contract. So you can apply under the name in which you publish. If I submit choreography, should I add a translation of the soundtrack? Again, you can if you choose to. When do artists get notified for traditional art and / painting? The notifications for this round of fellowships, there's 2 rounds this fiscal year, would be, I think, in February. And painting is a category that will occur next winter, and the notifications for that would be in late May of 2022. How do I submit the choreography work? Does it have to be recent? Again, you would submit it through an online grant system that we're going to talk about shortly, and recent would be within the last 4 years. And then let's hold the questions from there. And Dan, ready to roll?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay, Kelly?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Maggie?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Having a little bit of a technical issue here, but so I have the privilege of coordinating the poetry category for the Artist Fellowships. Just to go over some points we've already gone over, in all categories except for traditional arts, the Artist Fellowships review will be conducted anonymously. So the panelists and reviewers will only see the poetry that is submitted. Now, if you're applying in poetry, you will need to upload a manuscript. You have the option of uploading a manuscript and audio and or video file or files if your work is performative in nature. You have up to 15 total. So 15 pages or 15 pages / minutes if you also include audio or video with your submission. As with other categories, the work needs to have been completed within the last 4 years or still be in progress. And we'll ask you for that manuscript. And if you choose, the audio and video files, and then you'll be asked to give some information about the titles of the work that you are submitting, as well as the year completed and the length. And now Maggie is going to speak about traditional arts.
Okay. I'm waiting for the slide to pop up. But so as Dan has noted, this category is slightly different on a lot of levels, including the fact that it's not anonymously judged. And we accept work in what we're calling and defining traditional arts, meaning music, craft, dance, and verbal arts that reflect a cultural community's shared sense of aesthetics and meaning. So these are traditions that are shaped by standards of excellence that are passed down from generation to generation, most often with familial, ethnic, tribal, religious, or occupational communities. So examples might include music, sacred and secular crafts, occupational traditions like boat building, quilting, musical instrument making, folk and ethnic dance, and expressive culture associated with religious belief or seasonal celebrations. So these are the kinds of art forms that are learned through day-to-day contact with someone who's steeped in a tradition rather than through books, classes, or institutional instructions. Successful applicants will practice this tradition with artistic depth and cultural sensitivity, and they're dedicated to sustaining the art form by mentoring others. Now, given that, I'm going to just go over, there are 3 review criteria, slightly different than the other 11 categories. They are artistic quality as culturally defined by the living tradition. 2, significance to members of the community in which the art is valued and practiced. And 3, the artist's role in safeguarding the tradition. There was one question I was going to answer, and I believe it was from a Bharatanatyam dancer. This is a South Indian dance form, and this artist or individual could apply in both choreography and in traditional arts. The question was, the question was, given that the themes might be unfamiliar to reviewers, am I allowed to include text explaining the themes, meaning the cultural context of our tradition? So the answer in this case, in traditional arts, you very much will do that and need to do that because it's all about the art in its cultural context. As far as in the choreography, Kelly, do you want to weigh in on there? I don't know if is that part of an artist statement that can be added?
A Bharatanatyam performer, dancer, yes, can most definitely apply in the choreography category as well.
But I think the question was, can she include text explaining, written materials explaining what's going on?
In the application form, there will be a field in which an artist can include additional information on their work sample. I think it's up to 1,500 characters, don't quote me, but it's a good chunk for anyone to type more information about their work if they so choose. It's optional. It's there for the artists if they.
Okay. Someone was asking for me to repeat the criteria. They're actually on when you go into the website and you log in, they will be there, but I'll read them briefly again. So it's the artistic quality is culturally defined by the living tradition. So for example, you see this picture of Vasilis Kostas, who's playing a Greek musical instrument he learned within his cultural community in Epirus in the northwest of Greece, and learned from masters there. The tradition is very much defined by that culture. Doesn't mean it doesn't evolve, it does evolve. So it's the artistic quality of the art that's being practiced, its significance to members of the community in which it's valued, and the artist's role in safeguarding the tradition, and in some way, are they mentoring anybody? Are they concerned or invested in keeping that tradition going? So as it says here, these are not anonymously judged. They're judged by a panel that gets information, cultural information, written information, just the kind of thing that Bharatanatyam dancer was raising. And the panel is made up of folklorists, ethnomusicologists, maybe some practicing traditional artists, people that have cultural expertise in that art form. We also ask for up to 3, but you only required 1 letter of recommendation from somebody in the community or somebody that's knowledgeable about the art form that you do. And there you go there. And so let's see. If they can't be, this is a great question. So somebody's asking if the recommendation letter cannot be written in English, should I translate it by myself? I'm going to ask Jen to weigh in on that. I think we do have options to hire translation, but what do you think?
Yeah, so we do have translation service available, so that if you provide materials in a language aside from English, we would work with a translator to translate it into English for the review for Maggie. We do need a little bit of lead time for that. So if you want to submit materials in a language other than English, happily you should do so, but try to do so early so that we have time to get the translation done ahead of the review. So
good point. And then we will be able to get that to panelists. So the best thing would be to send me an email, if you're planning on doing that, and we can take care of it. So probably better that you don't translate it yourself, because I think you can understand why. So is the recommendation letter required for both the traditional arts fellowships as well as in choreography? Absolutely not. This is only in the traditional arts that we want these letters. And that's because we really want to hear from the community in which this art form is practiced. Saying that this person, why they think this person is deserving of this fellowship. Because we might not know about that tradition. So it's good to have that letter, and you only need 1, you can have up to 3, but that's the only category in which we ask for these letters. Let's see if there's any other. Oh, this is a good question. Are there any grants for, okay, wait, sorry, it's all great questions. So work samples limited to the last 4 years. We have a little more flexibility in the traditional arts, but I wouldn't suggest submitting something over 10 years old. I mean, you have to be still actively practicing the art form. So I'm not going to say a hard, fast 4 years. If you want to include something a little bit older, and if you have questions about it, just send me an email and we can communicate about that. But we do want to ensure that you're still practicing the tradition. Are there grants for singer-songwriters? If so, what's that deadline?
Yeah, so that would be singer-songwriters generally would fall into the music composition category.
Yes.
And we have 12 categories overall, but only 6 each year. So categories come up for review every other year, and music composition will be one of next year's categories. Briefly, next year's categories would include crafts, dramatic writing, film and video, music composition, photography, and sculpture, installation, new genres. So yes, singer-songwriters, I mean, unless it's a singer-songwriter in a traditional form, Maggie would be better served to respond as to whether you would fit in the traditional arts category. Generally, when you say singer-songwriter, it's more of a new composition category, and so music composition would be the category to apply in, and that will be in the category next year.
Yes, thanks, Dan.
Dan, there's a few more questions that I just wanted to run through quickly, if that's okay with you, circling back to choreography.
Great.
Okay. A question on, can these streaming links such as YouTube be used? No, again, you have to have the original video file that you would save to your computer in order to upload into the application form. Currently, we're not using web links as part of the application review. The person who received a grant as part of the COVID-19 relief fund for individuals, you are not disqualified from applying to the fellowship program. If you submit choreography or video, what will the Mass Cultural Council do with the video after submission? Will it be posted on a web platform or shared in any way beyond judging? We do have a gallery of images and work samples. And if you are a fellow or finalist and you give us permission to link to your work, we can post it on the gallery at MCC. If you don't want us to, we would not. You want to partner with another choreographer? Yes, we allow collaborations in the fellowships as long as the primary applicant is a Massachusetts resident. You can submit a single joint application with a collaborator. You'd have to provide their resume as well in the application form. But yes, you may have a collaborator or multiple collaborators applying for a single joint fellowship. Dan, I'm going to hold pause there and we can carry on.
Somebody, I don't see the whole question here, but they're saying it says craft boat building ? Can you explain to me the culturally defined part? And then I don't see anything else. Oh, let's see, craft virgin. We have, I'm not sure because the whole question isn't really there, and then somebody else is, what?
It sounds like if people want to get a fuller understanding about what falls into traditional arts and kind of why and what's behind it, maybe they could email you directly.
They need to email me directly. I'm happy to have a conversation with any one of you, but it's too hard in this setting to be jumping back and forth and trying to answer these questions.
Traditional arts is very expansive, and I think so. That's the thing to do, is to talk to Maggie.
Yeah.
And I think,
One
Yeah.
other thing, just one quick thing. Somebody's asking about the recommendation letter. Again, when you're in the application, it gives very specific, directions about what should be included in that letter. All right, so it's in there. Again, you're happy to communicate with me separately if that's not clear. But yes, the person should introduce him or herself and their relationship to the applicant. And why are you being chosen to write this letter? It's because you either have expertise in the art form, etc. So again, it's too nuanced to go into here, but I'm happy to answer any questions directly if you just shoot me an email afterwards.
Okay, a few more questions, Dan. Here's for poetry. Can an applicant send a reading in Spanish?
So yes, I would say broad answer, yes. And it may be better to follow up with me for a little bit more information. So I understand a little bit better what that would entail. But if any kind of question like that, when it comes to language access, our essential stance is we want to work with artists to ensure a way that you can apply so long as all other eligibility requirements are met.
Another poetry question. Does the submission manuscript need to include some type of table of contents, or can the pieces come one after another for the full 15 pages?
The latter, the no table of contents is needed in the manuscript file that you upload, because in the online form, you will be asked to essentially give that information, the title, the year completed, number of pages. That will in essence create a kind of table of contents for the panelists and reviewers to use. So you don't need to waste one of your 15 pages making a table of contents. You'll be able to essentially give that very same information in the online application form.
For poetry, do we send unpublished or published, or are both accepted?
Thank
And
you.
part two would be, do we need to mention where poetry was published if we sent published work?
Great questions. You may submit published, unpublished, in progress, completed. So long as it was completed within the last 4 years, you can submit it, or is in progress, you can submit it. Do you need to say where it was published? Not for the purposes of the application. If you are awarded a fellowship, Kelly mentioned the online gallery earlier. We do like to share samples of work by artists we fund. Of course, it's up to the artist whether to share any work or not on our gallery. But if we do share a poem on our gallery, and if that poem is previously published, we would want that information about where it was published to credit that journal. But for the purposes of the application itself, no, we do not require that information. It's really the poetry itself. That's what we need, and that's what's reviewed as part of this process, not where it's been, where it was published, that kind of information.
Another question, can I apply in drawing, fiction, creative nonfiction, and poetry, 3 different categories in a year?
Great question. So you may apply in drawing and printmaking, fiction, creative nonfiction. What was the last one?
I believe it was poetry.
Poetry. The answer is yes, you may apply in multiple categories, but you can only apply once per category. So you definitely could, if you work in all of those genres, yes, you'd need to submit different work, but you could submit drawings in the drawing and printmaking category, prose in the fiction, creative nonfiction category, and then poetry in the poetry category. What you could not do is submit 2 poetry applications. sometimes folks think that fiction and creative nonfiction are separate. That's actually one category. So you wouldn't be able to put in two different applications in fiction, creative nonfiction with fiction and nonfiction prose, just one application in each category, and then different work for every application.
And
I have a question here. Someone's writing in saying, I teach Chinese instruments, musical instrument. Should teachers or students apply for traditional arts? As we said, as Dan mentioned earlier on, if you're a student, even a graduate student, anything related to that art form, you should not be applying. So in this case, no, it should be the artist applying and not the artist students applying, unless they're out of school.
Owner, at this point, shall we let Jen show the grants management system, and then we'll return to questions after that?
Great
that
idea.
sounds good. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the new grants management system. So we have moved all of the agency's grants into one unified grants management system. So if you're an artist who previously has been applying for local cultural council grants and artist fellowships, and you used to do that in two different places through two different systems, now everything is consolidated into one system. So when you're logged into the new system, you're going to have access to all of the funding opportunities from the Mass Cultural Council, all the funding opportunities from the local cultural councils, and you're going to see it all in one place. So we are excited about that. It's hopefully going to give you a more streamlined experience, and it will hopefully cut down on the kind of repetitive, you kind of supplying information more than once. So here's the URL for the new site, and it's on the Artist Fellowship guideline pages. When you click apply now, it takes you right to it. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an intro into the system. So what makes the system more streamlined and means you don't have to enter your information multiple times is that basically every person is called a user in the system. So there's every person that logs on the grants management system is considered a user. What makes one user distinct from another is their email address. So in this system, your email address is kind of like a unique ID. It basically, your email address serves as your username. So your email address can only be in the system once. So one user per email, one email per user. It's a one-to-one. And so when you are logging in, you're using your email as your username. So that means, you know, if you're solely an artist applying for individual artist fellowships, that's very straightforward and simple. If you are an artist that also works at a cultural organization, and maybe you fill out that cultural organization's project grants, or you're an individual artist who also serves on their local cultural council, and you need to log in and fill out your annual report for the cultural council. If you're someone who is wearing many hats and you want to wear all those hats in the system, it will mean that you're going to need more than one email address, because each account you create will have different roles kind of behind it. So the more hats you wear in real life that you carry into the system, you're going to need more email addresses. So this example, so we're calling it the kind of the one hat rule. So when you're applying for grants for yourself, for artist fellowships or for LCC grants, you're going to need one email address for that. If you are also applying, if you work at a cultural organization and you're going to apply for grants on behalf of that cultural organization, you'll need another email address tied to that account, because you're playing a different role. And then if you're also very civically minded and you're on your local cultural council, you might need another one for that. So you can log in and act on behalf of the local cultural council. So that's just a warning if you wear lots of hats. If you're really solely applying for grants for yourself, it's very straightforward. You have one email address and you log in with it, and it will be very simple. So you might be wondering, I've applied in the past, am I in the system already? So if you have applied for an artist fellowship in the past, you most likely probably have a user record in the system already. We did move forward individuals who'd applied to the artist fellowship program in the past 20 years that had an email address. So we carried those all forward and we created a record for you. So your next question might be, do I use my same username and password that you maybe used in our old system? And so the answer to that is no. So your email address is your username. And we're going to show you how you'll create a new password for the new system. So kind of big picture, if you applied for the fellowship in the past, we probably have a record for you already, and you're going to kind of, you know, get a new password for that. If you've never applied before to the system, you're going to be registering new. So right now I'm going to share my screen and kind of give you a little tour. So the first tour, part of the tour will be aimed at the folks who've applied in the past. Now I'm going to tell you how to log in, how to finish your user profile, and you know where you'll start an application. So that's if you have a record in the system. And then for those folks who are applying for the first time, I'll do it again and show you kind of how to register for the first time and log in and start an application. So let me see. Let's pull up the right one. Okay. So this is the new landing page for the new grants management system. And if you're a past artist fellow applicant, you're going to start here with forgot password. So let me just give you a quick overview. So we have some information on the left with links to the programs, links to joining the email list, and a link to a help desk if you have trouble logging in for any reason. And then over here is the login area. And then this is where you're going to register if you're new to the system. So for those that have applied in the past, you're going to start by clicking forgot password. And this is just a way to create a new password for you because you didn't actually forget your password. It's just a way to connect you to it. So you're going to enter your email address and you're going to confirm that you are not a robot. And then you're going to hit submit. And now let me just do a test. I'll show you what happens. So once you hit submit, it gives you some additional instructions. And so depending on how strictly you lock down your email address from spam, if you have very tight privacy controls and you limit what's getting into your inbox, you probably want to take a minute to take this email address, masscultural_no-reply@merciful.com, and add it to your contact list. If your spam filters are not picky and everything gets through it, you may not need to worry about it, but this is just giving you some information about what to expect. So once you do that, it's gonna send a password to you to that email address. It's a way to set a password. So, sorry, it's not the right email. I had all my things open. So this is the sample of the email you'll get. So when you enter your username, you hit submit, it'll generate an email and it'll tell you what your temporary password is. So you'll want to copy the password and click on the link and you'll come back to the site and you'll enter that password when you're prompted and you'll create a new password. So you'll put your email address in the login, you'll put in your temporary password, a new screen will pop up and it's going to say, you know, welcome to the system, create a new password, and you're going to put in a password that you'll remember. We will not have access to your password. So if you forget your password, the only way to retrieve it is to use that process. So Kelly, if you call up Kelly, Kelly can't tell you what your password is that you set for yourself. You'll just have to set a new one.
Jen, I have a question here that I don't know the answer to. So someone's writing, if you've logged in the past, but want to use a new email, should you register as new to the system?
So if you were applying under a different email in the past, It's kind of up to you. So what we've done when we've carried forward your record is it does actually carry forward a record that you have applied in the past. And it would carry forward any records of your basic information about grants you've applied for and maybe received or not received. So if you wanted to connect to that content, then you might want to either call, you might want to connect to, you could log in the first time using your own email, your old email, I'm sorry. And then once you're in, you can change your email address. But if you don't care about connecting to whatever you've done in the past and you want to start fresh, you can just start fresh and register. So it's kind of up to you. But that old email, if you can get the emails from that old email, you can still use it to get started if you choose that route. But
meaning the system will find you and then you log in and you go to your user profile and you can change your email. Is that right?
Yeah.
But only one, right, okay.
Yeah, so you can update your email that's associated with your account at any time. So once you've logged in the first time, I'll show you where your profile is and you can edit that information. So I'm going to show the process for a new person to register, and then I'll bring you to the kind of landing page and show you all where you'll find applications and where you'll find your profile. So if you are completely new to the system or have a new email and you're just forging ahead, you will just register and you'll register. And as you'll always pick individual because you're applying in this program, only individuals are eligible. So you'll register as an individual. And so this form, walks you through, there's some mandatory fields, your contact information, your address. So for your city and town, we're going to have you pick your official city and town. So if you live in a neighborhood of Boston, you're going to select Boston. If you live in a village of Barnstable, you're going to pick Barnstable and not the village. So we do need your official municipality, not your neighborhood or village. And then once you do that, there's a couple fields that will, we need your county, region, and broad region. And these are for advocacy and reporting purposes. But once you pick the city, we only give you one right answer for the rest. So it should take you just a second to provide that. And that will really help us advocate for funding and talk about our impact. Also new this year, we have an optional demographic section that's been created to support our work around diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. And it's going to help us collect some baseline information about our applicants across the system. So while these are all mandatory questions, each individual question, you have the option of skipping it. So you take a minute and provide whatever information you feel comfortable providing, and know that none of this information is provided to reviewers. This is just part of your profile. And this is information that we can look at in the aggregate to get a better understanding of who's applying to our programs, who's not applying to our programs, and funding patterns. So again, this is optional, and you can answer whatever you feel comfortable answering. And then once you hit submit, it'll be a similar process where you'll get an activation email, like many online accounts. So you'll hit submit, you'll get an email to the address you provided, and it'll have a link for you to activate your account and create a password. So now I'm going to go and show you the view once you're logged in. Let me just pull it up. Okay. It logged me. I was out first, probably for too long. So once you've created your password, whether you're someone who had an account already or someone who's registered for the first time, when you log in, this is kind of your portal or your homepage. And I wanted to call out for those people who had an email address already and just created a password connecting to their prior email. The first thing you need to do is click on my profile, and because you didn't fill out the new registration form, you do have to go in and answer those demographic questions and make sure your address is up to date, you know, because it may have changed since whenever we pulled this for you. So if you're had an account, you're connecting to that old account using that address, your first stop should be your profile to update your contact information and complete the demographic information. And when you've done that, you can hit save user profile, and then you're done. But that's just to make sure we have the most up-to-date information available. And you can update your profile at any point. If anything changes, you should update it there. My computer is very slow today. My internet is unstable, so thank you for your patience while I wait for this and my internet to catch up. Gosh. Sorry. Let me just. All right, so now we're back in as an applicant. So when you land in your profile, the kind of key areas are current opportunities. And so this is where you'll find the Artist Fellowship's choreography, Artist Fellowship traditional arts, and Artist Fellowship poetry. So you'll always find whatever opportunities are currently there for you. You can also see if it's between September 1st and October 15th of the year, you can see where you can apply to a local cultural council as well in the same place. If you ever want to change your password, you have change password. And then once you start an application, and you want to save and come back to it because you've maybe opened it and you've taken a look, this section is where you'll find it. So if you've started something and you have it in draft, in this case, I started a choreography and it's in draft, that's where you'll find it. So you can always start an application, hit save draft, and come back to it. And I think at this point, that was what I was going to share. Kelly and Dan, or Maggie, did you want me to open the applications, or were you did we want to skip that and try to answer some questions? Because I know it's 11.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions in the queue, Jen.
Yeah.
So maybe Jen, if you hang for a second, there's a few general questions. I'm applying for Cambridge Arts Grant LCC. I need a new email to apply for this fellowship? Question.
No, only if you are on the Cambridge Arts Council, like a member of the Cambridge Arts Council, and you're, submitting your Cambridge Arts Council report to us. If you're just an applicant to both, no. That's what's great about the system. You can log in as you and apply to a Cambridge Arts Council grant and a Artist Fellowship grant from the same portal. It's only if you are on a council, like if you're an appointed member, that it might be an issue.
If you've logged in the past but want to use a new email, should you register as new to the system?
You can. You absolutely can register as new. If you want to just start fresh, you can just click register. If there was a prior record you wanted to be able to see what you'd applied for and what you were successful or not, you can use your old one, but you can absolutely just start fresh and new. It's totally your call.
And Jen, if they use their old one, they could update their email in my profile.
Yep, exactly.
Correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
so you can start with your old one and then update your profile to be your new email address.
Is there a sorry.
I was just going to say, we have colleagues who are very enthusiastic about data and data continuity. And I would guess they would be enthusiastic about our encouraging you to use your old login and then update your email in my profile, but truly do whatever works best for you.
Next question, is there a recommended browser for using the website?
The grants management system should work in all browser types. We've not had any reported issues with applications so far. if you're doing it, it should also be responsive. It should work on tablets. It should work on phones. So I think right now it's fair game, but if you're using a specific device or browser and find an issue, please let us know, since this is a new system to us, and it would be helpful to hear from you if something's not displaying properly if you're looking at it on a tablet, because we want it to be as accessible as possible.
Couple more general questions for you, Jen. Can we be sent a PDF of the slideshow presented today?
Yeah, we can save that as a PDF. And you can hang it. I don't know if you want to send it to people after Dan or Kelly, or just make it available on your Artist Fellowship page, and along with the recording.
Right, we'll do one or the other. The recording will be published on Mass Cultural Council's YouTube channel sometime within the next day or two. But we can make the PDF, and what we may do is add it to our online resource, ArtSake, which is it's a place that individual artists should know about, because there are tips specific to applying for an artist fellowship that we've published on ArtSake. But beyond that, there are weekly artist opportunities that we share there, as well as other resources. So whether or not you go to ArtSake for tips for artist fellowships or to find the PDF of the slideshow, it's a place that as an individual artist in Massachusetts, you may find useful.
General question. I noticed that my application from last year was gone. Was it supposed to be so? And that this year's application will be gone sometime later? Again, question.
I think in this case, without knowing where you're looking or what your name, if you want to give one of us a call, we can look you up and see if you might have two records and that's why you're not seeing something. But I will say the content from prior applications, there will be no content. So whatever the work samples you entered from your FY20 application, if you're in the system, you'll see that you applied in FY20 and whether you were successful or not. But when you try to open that record, there will be no content. So the past records are really just that you applied and if you were successful or not. Going forward, if you apply in FY22, the information you provide and work samples you upload will stay in the system indefinitely, until we run out of space on their server, but they keep telling us we won't. But, it sounds like that will all be there. So in future years, when you look at your past applications, it'll actually provide more information. But for now, all you'll see is kind of a shell of a record just to say you applied and whether you're successful or not.
We have an interesting question. Oh, you want to go first, Kelly?
No, go ahead, Maggie.
Well, someone's asking, how diverse is the judging panel? Can we get the statistics? Who wants to answer that? We have answers for that.
Kelly, do you mind if I jump in?
Please do.
Okay, so I'm going to start basic. The panels are comprised of individuals in that discipline with a high level of expertise and experience. And so that might be past awardees, that might be curators, that might be publishers, editors, that might be educators. We work to create panels that are diverse in every single way, including their experience, their access point to the discipline, their geographic diversity, their ethnic diversity, their racial diversity. We, as part of our ongoing efforts in diversity and equity and inclusion, we have a goal of our grants panels being comprised of at least 50% people of color. So that is our goal. I think in this program we have met that goal in the past, and will continue to. But I don't have statistics at my fingertips as far as past panels. I will say the panelists change every year. We occasionally will ask a panelist to return But for the most part, the panels are brand new every single year. And so if you have applied in the past, if you weren't successful, that does not mean that you should not apply again. Please apply again. In fact, we've seen folks submit the very same work they applied last time with a new group of panelists. They found their audience, so to speak, and went on to win grants. So the panelists do change every year. And as I said, it's our agency's goal that those grant panels are at least 50% people of color.
Dan and Maggie, we have a lot of questions in the queue, so I'm going to pepper you with some questions to try to get through a lot of these. Dan, I'm going to give you a bunch of literary questions.
Right.
Does theatrical writing based on a historic figure count for the traditional arts category?
No, that would be dramatic writing, which will come up next year.
Is creative nonfiction category being discussed today?
Only in that, we're not specifically. We will do another event just like this in the run up to the deadline in January in the categories of drawing and printmaking, fiction, creative nonfiction, and painting.
Is memoir considered creative nonfiction?
Yes.
Another poetry question. Can I include JPEG images within the document of visual or erasure poetry?
Yes, you may include images within the, probably it will be a PDF. They'll have to count toward the 15 pages. So it wouldn't be additional to 15. So the manuscript file would still have to be 15 pages or fewer, even with the images included.
Do the 15 poems or pages need to be related as a particular collection or theme, or can they be random?
They can be random. Sometimes it helps the panelists if there is a cohesive voice that can be appreciated in the work that's submitted, no matter what category it is. But there's no guideline that it has to be from the same collection or related. It can be completely random.
Also in poetry, does 15 pages mean 15 poems? Or if you have some shorter ones, can you include more, tag one on a page?
Yeah, so 15 pages just means 15 pages. You get into a little bit of a gray area about does that mean 15 poems, but I will say it does not necessarily help your application to fit more poems into it. I would try to stick to the 15 pages, 15 poems maximum as a general rule. Only if there's a really good reason would I include more than that.
Are digital-only artists accepted for poetry or visual arts? In visual arts, yes, you can submit imagery that's made digitally only. And
Yes,
in poetry?
Yes, for poetry as well, yes.
Okay. There's a few choreography questions I'm going to run through right now. Are dance films welcome to be submitted for choreography? Yes. Do the panelists review all work samples? It depends on how large the pool of applications are because it's a time-based discipline. There may be a 2-round review in which some of the work is reviewed by not the full jury, but an assigned jury for the first round. And then in the second round, all of the reviewers would review all of the work samples. How many choreographies for the 20 minutes can be split into different sections? You can submit up to 20 minutes full running time with four video files. So however you decide to break it up into different sections is completely up to you. Can the collaborators be international? Yes, as long as the primary applicant is a resident of Massachusetts for 2 years. Who will the panelists generally be? Typically, they are choreographers, presenters, people who are involved with dance and choreography. Are recommendation letters required for choreography or optional or not permitted? They are not permitted in the choreography category because it's an anonymous review. Aside from our samples, what materials should we be prepared to submit? Resume was mentioned. You would have in the application form, you're going to be asked for your name, your address, an email address, a website if you have one, website link, the work samples, which would include the title, the year completed, the length of the work sample. So in the case of choreography, it's the number of minutes, and you can also supply a brief description for the single piece. In addition, you can also optionally include a little bit more text describing the work in a broader context. Maggie, there's a few traditional questions.
Mhm.
Is there anything else we should know about traditional arts applicants' work samples?
Well, I can only say that because in this category, we're mixing genres, right? So we have craft, music, dance, it's visual arts and performing arts. So the work samples can be still images, they can be video, audio, and all of that is explained once you're in the application. And if you have questions, probably best to get into it and then ask me directly. Oh, somebody wants to know, doesn't have limited time for MP3 or videos. We don't, traditional doesn't have limited time. I can't recall, Jen. It should have limited time. I mean, the general rules, no more than 20 minutes, right?
Total running time, correct.
Total running time,
That's
please.
correct.
Yeah. Again, because it's time-based and yeah.
What defines craft versus traditional arts?
That is a huge question, which probably is best. Well, the disciplines are defined and that's on the website, but I did read our category of definition for traditional arts, which is much broader than craft. But a simple thing, you might think of, fine studio craft, like, pottery or glass blowing, versus craft that's rooted in, like, again, back to the wooden boat building tradition, in which you're learning within a community, a maritime community, knowledge about wooden boat building. It's much easier to talk with you one-on-one in this, if you have specific questions about your art form, but they're two separate. And of course, the craft category is anonymously judged. The traditional arts is not. I need a more specific question, probably.
Okay. Just a moment, please.
Yeah, I'm looking for more too.
I'm doing a traditional art and I'm teaching and lecture in school with my traditional art. I'm also a master's student, but it's not related to traditional art.
Yeah.
Can I apply?
Okay, I answered that directly to this person.
Okay.
So, but if it's relevant for other people, as long as if you can be a graduate student but as long as it's not related, as we said in the beginning, to the traditional art form that you're applying in, you can apply. But you can't be seeking a graduate degree in that traditional art and apply.
I teach choreography at a local organization. Can I apply for myself and for them? I'm not sure what this person is asking. Teaching choreography. This is the Choreography Fellowship is for your choreographic work. You can apply for yourself as a choreographer for an artist fellowship. Applying for them, if the people that you're teaching are also choreographing their own work and you want to help them apply, if that's what you mean, yes, you can also contact me and we can talk about this further. Let's just see a few more questions here. There was a general question. I have submitted application from the past years. Will they also be reviewed by the panel for 2021, 2022? If yes, will they have a chance to review the videos, recommendation letter, and application essay?
No, I mean, I answered that one. No, they will not. This is, each time you apply, you need to come up with your new work samples and submit them. They can't go back and look at past submissions.
Okay. There's a few questions here actually for painting and drawing and printmaking. Someone wanted to confirm that they're submitting paintings only done in the last 4 years. Yes, that's correct. The work is from the last 4 years. It can also be a work in progress. So if one is submitting in the painting category for 2021, which would be the applications would go live in mid-December, the 15th, that is when the applications would be available for painting. And as Dan and Maggie said, we'll do another one of these sessions when those categories are live. Do you accept lettering and calligraphy and drawing printmaking? Yes. Does the poetry/art have to be published? No. Do you, that's that. Are there any grants for singer-songwriters? If so, when is the deadline?
I believe we talked about that earlier, and Dan mentioned that that would
Okay.
be under composition, music composition,
Okay.
which is not this time, but in, I guess, FY23.
Correct.
Right. Okay. There's a couple more questions here. Painting category, my work I intend to submit is already signed. Will that disqualify the work? No, it won't. Do I have access to software that can remove the signature from the digital file of the works of the works? In the spirit of the program, this isn't an anonymous review, so we try to avoid having names be fully present, but we understand people sign their artwork, their paintings, and it's part of the piece. So we would not have you have to ruin the integrity of the painting by blurring out a corner to obscure a signature. So please leave it be. Don't go through extra steps for that process. Can I submit 15 pages of poetry and I just lost it, and recording of me reading the poems? That's within the 15-minute limit.
Well, I mean, yes, but you'd have to add the two together. So you could not do 15 pages and then an additional 15 minutes of audio or video. You could do 8 pages and then 7 minutes of audio or video. The total has to be 15, whether that's minutes, pages. It can't be more than that. It can't be more than 15.
And someone's double checking again on the video sample requirements. And yes, double checking, it should be 20 minutes maximum. That's right. You do not want to exceed 20 minutes maximum total running time. Correct. Is there any benefit to having applied for and not received a grant in the past? Are you more likely to receive a grant the second, third, or fourth time around?
That's a great question. In that you are more familiar with our process, it benefits you to have applied in the past, but that application does not, to repeat something Maggie said earlier, it's not, any past application is not part of this year's process. Everything is reviewed anonymously. And so in that sense, it's a clean slate. So there's, think of that as each application is brand new.
Do you need letters for creative nonfiction?
No letters of recommendation, traditional arts.
I write poetry, but I'm also developing a new collaborative project that involves visual art. I'm trying to decide if I should submit only my past written work or should consider the collaborative work, which would need to include the visual art. Have there been multidisciplinary collaborations that have received grants in the poetry category in the past?
That is a great question. I can't actually remember right now a poetry project including imagery that has won in the past, but that it could be that I'm just not remembering. I don't know that I would take that as discouragement to applying. If that's the work that you feel is your strongest, then I'd say apply with that work. We really encourage folks to apply with what they consider to be their strongest work. It does not have to be the brand newest work if you're still unsure about it, but it can be. It's really what you consider to be your strongest work. You can also, I would encourage folks to ask trusted peers their opinion. You know, what other people who know your work, what are they most excited about within your work, and maybe be guided by that. But you may also apply, you know, you've got 15 pages to work with. You could do some of each, and that would be completely fine. I mean, you'd have the option to include a little bit of contextual information in the work sample description. I'm just explaining that it's two different projects. So that would be a way to split the difference.
Are the fellowship and finalist awards subject to the matching funds requirement that is stated on the website as other grants that are given to organizations?
No, there's no matching requirement in the artist fellowships, and they're unrestricted funds. They are taxable. That's one thing to
Taxable,
mention.
but it's because, yeah, they're to individuals, not to organizations.
Will there be instructions on the grant management process you just showed us?
We have the, I think we've got written instructions on ArtSig, I believe, for both how to approach it as a returning applicant and how to approach it as a new applicant. And we're developing PDFs and things that can help go more if you're more of a visual person, but you'll have this presentation, this video, written instructions on ArtSig. And if you need any additional guidance getting in, we have the help desk, and then you also have this great staff to help answer questions. So, but if there's a resource you think we should provide, we're happy to take suggestions and feedback.
Is there a preferred audio video file format to accompany the written poetry submission?
There is a list of different file types. It includes almost any you could think of. No, there's not a preferred one, but the file has to be one of those, and the file type has to be one of those, and it has to be 2 gigabytes or less.
What happens if a judge recognizes an applicant's work?
That's a great question. So we still proceed anonymously. If a judge recognizes the work, we would try to discern whether there is a conflict of interest and or whether the juror, if there is no conflict of interest, if there is a conflict of interest, that juror would absolutely not discuss or vote on it. If we determine there's not a conflict of interest, we would discuss with that juror whether she or he can be objective and whether she or he should recuse from voting. So we would address the issue if a juror did recognize an artist's work. If we determine there isn't a conflict in the art and the juror can still be objective, we would proceed anonymously. No other information about that artist's other work or identifying details would be shared during the process.
Can one send a combination of fiction and nonfiction in that category, or can one only send fiction or send nonfiction?
Both within, I think it's 20 pages that you'd be limited to. So within the 20 page limit, you can send excerpts of either kind and or both.
If I submit 5 minutes of audio poetry, does that mean I have only 10 pp limit?
Yes.
10 page limit?
Yeah.
For the dance choreography, what are they looking for? The dance choreography, what are they looking forward to? I'm not quite sure what that question means. If it means what is the panel looking for, They're looking for work that's created in the last 4 years, and there's no type of work that's required of the fellowship program for choreography. How many work samples for painting? That would be 5 JPEG images. You can have them be detail shots. You can have them be full shots. You can subdivide a JPEG into, you can subdivide it however you want to do it, but it's 5 JPEG images total. Will there be an info session for the next cycle? Fiction, creative nonfiction? Yes, there will. Crafts, would fashion art be eligible? Yes, it would. If you're an editor of a poetry zine, would that qualify as a fellowship?
So you can still apply if you also write original poetry, but applying as an organization or as a publisher, this would not be the program for an application like that. If it's a nonprofit organization, you might be eligible to apply for our cultural investment portfolio, which supports cultural organizations.
Are these grants for a specific amount of money? Are awards granted based on judging, or are grants awarded based on the artist's request?
So they are for specific amounts. The fellowships are $15,000. The finalist awards are $5,000. There's no request. There's no project proposal. You're just submitting samples of your work. And yes, it's based on the reviewers' judgment of those works based on artistic quality and creative ability as the criteria.
I missed a question up above. Someone was asking about age in jury. How about age diversity?
Yes, that's a consideration as well. Absolutely.
If we've missed any questions, I apologize to all of you that are participating, but please know that we're here to answer any further questions that you may have. Can we get to the application page through the main MCC site? You want to go to the Artists tab. There's 4 main sections of types of funding that we have at the agency. So go to the Artists page, and then you'll be able to get to the application link through the Artists page. Okay.
Again, we thank you so much. We apologize for the technical issues, and if we missed any questions, please do get in touch with us with further questions. And it looks like Jen right now is showing you where you can find the application form in the Artists and Art section. But we thank you for for attending this information session and for your work as artists. And again, please contact us with further questions. Best of luck if you do apply to the Artist Fellowships. Best of luck to you. And thanks again.
Thank you. Bye all.